Let me tell you what we know happened and what we don't know yet. Obviously, a twin-engine plane went down in the Hudson River, and we have reason to believe that there were 155 people, including crew, roughly, and that we think all got out safely. Now, the reason I'm saying we believe and we think is that some were taken to New Jersey and some were taken to this side of the Hudson River. Most were picked up by New York Waterways boats, and we have Alan Warner, the harbor master, here, and some were picked up by Circle Line boats, and we think some might have been picked up by Coast Guard, PD, and FDNY boats. So we are trying to verify every single person that was on that boat, make sure that they are accounted for. But there is no reason to believe at the moment that this wasn't something that we should thank God for, that everybody got out safely, and we do not believe that there are any serious injuries. A few people were taken to the hospital. They're in stable condition. A few people wanted to go to the hospital. They may or may not by this time have arrived. But it would appear that the pilot did a masterful job of landing the plane in the river and then making sure that everybody got out. I had a long conversation with the pilot. He walked the plane twice after everybody else was off and tried to verify that there was nobody else on board and assures us there were not. I also talked to a passenger who said he was the last one up the aisle and that he made sure there was nobody behind him. But the information is still subject to slight variations because there were some passengers on board where the manifest doesn't show them or does show them, and we're trying to get an accurate list from U.S. Airways. But the first and most important thing is this pilot did a wonderful job, and it would appear that all roughly 155, including crew and one infant, got out safely. The second thing that you should know is that the actual cause of the accident will be investigated by the National Transportation Safety Board. I talked to Mary Peters, the head of the U.S. Department of Transportation. The FAA is under them. The NTSB is a separate independent agency, but she informed me that they were leaving Washington National Airport with their normal team that goes to any wrecks, and they will arrive here roughly 7:30, and they will be the ones that will do an investigation, and they will make no conclusions in advance. So all of the speculation on what really happened here is just speculation, and the NTSB is going to do their normal, careful, thoughtful, and competent review of what actually happened. But the most important thing, let me come back to, and that is that all the passengers got out safely, we think. I did talk to the mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, where the plane was going, Pat McCrory. He said we met a couple times, and I said the governor and I will buy him a drink the next time he comes to New York, but he called to say thank you very much for treating all the people who are going to Charlotte or lived in Charlotte. Every report the governor got, they were just over the top with the kind of hospitality that we showed. I pointed out this is not normally the way people arrive in New York City, but nevertheless, as long as they're all got out safely, I think everything else is secondary. There are some phone numbers if anybody watching is worried about a passenger. U.S. Air has a number, 1-800-679-8215. That's 679-8215. And you can also call 311 if you live outside of New York City. Remember, the number for 311 is 212-NEWYOK. And we will try to make sure that you get the information that you are looking for. In terms of the response, the FDNY and the NYPD and the Port Authority Police all work together. This is one of those events which, under our agreement, there's joint responsibility, both the police department and the fire department, and I think what you saw was, once again, them working together. They plan for these kinds of emergencies, they train for these kinds of emergencies, and you saw it in action because of their fast, brave work. We think that contributed to the fact that it looks like everybody is safe. The police commissioner had a couple of divers in the water. One or two of them went into the plane. They did get some people who actually went into the water. An awful lot of people stepped right onto ferries that pulled up next to the plane or right up to the wings where they were able to get out on the wings. But this unified command that we have and the Office of Emergency Management's assistance, everything did seem to work as well as you would hope that it would work. We got some assistance from the state. They were asked to send in some air resources, and Michael Balboni, who's here, said they did. Now I thought it'd be nice to hear from the governor. The governor's staff could not have been more cooperative. Anything that we asked for, we got right away. Governor Patterson?
Upon information and belief, there is an heroic pilot who saved himself and approximately 154 other passengers this afternoon. We've had a miracle on 34th Street. I believe now we've had a miracle in the Hudson. This was potentially a very tragic incident. This pilot somehow, without any engines, was able to land this plane, and perhaps without any serious injuries to any of the passengers. The effort was assisted by ferries in the water, New York Waterways ferries, the Circle Line, also the Coast Guard got involved. The agencies of the city and the state collaborated. Our Department of Environmental Protection will now help as part of the investigation. The NTSB will be here shortly to have a full investigation of the plane, the runway which has been shut down. But I think for all the times that we've had to appear at these press conferences in rather dismal circumstances, this is a day to realize how blessed this city is and how all of us are as New Yorkers, and to the families and those who survived. There was a retired policeman named Wendell Fox from Charlotte who I spoke to, and he said that he participated in these types of rescues and he'd never seen anything this magnificent as coming off of a plane into the water and looking up and seeing all those ferries coming to rescue them. There's another passenger whose name I won't give, but says that his brother died in the attack on our country on September 11th. So he is no stranger to tragedy, but he said he's a very blessed person today. So I think that in simplicity, this is really a potential tragedy that may have become one of the most spectacular days in the history of New York City's agencies, its coordination, and the greatness of the people who work here and all they did for those passengers who are now, tonight, going to go home to their families.
Governor, thank you. I should point out that we have our borough president, Scott Stringer, and Speaker of the City Council, Chris Quinn, with us, as well as Chris Ward, who's the executive director of the Port Authority, and, of course, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, Fire Commissioner Nick Scapetter, and OEM Commissioner Joe Bruno here with us. I probably missed a whole bunch of people, but I apologize. We have the chief of the PAPD police here as well. But I think what you're seeing, the reason there's so many people here is we know how to respond, we know how to work together, and clearly in this case, people benefited. We'd be happy to take a few questions, sir.
Since you said you talked to the pilot, what did you walk you through as to what he felt, what happened?
He did not. He was very careful in what he talked about, and I think that's the kind of training that you would expect of a veteran pilot. They don't speculate. They're going to talk to the NAS, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and that's exactly what they should do. What he did talk about was to assure us that he had walked the plane a couple of times to make sure that there was nobody left. And after that, he's going to wait and talk to the people that he should have. I might also point out that the plane itself is now down in about Battery Park City and is tied up to a pier, and eventually it'll be pulled out and they'll do a complete investigation on every part of it. Miss?
Mr. Mayor, several witnesses that I spoke to said that about several minutes into the flight they heard a big boom, a crash. And so the question that they had and the question that I have is there any indication that there was any kind of terrorism or what caused the boom?
Absolutely no indication whatsoever. As a matter of fact, people are about as sure as you can be without pulling the plane out of the water yet, that there was nothing other than an accident that may have had to do with both engines for reasons that the NTSB will decide, failing at exactly the same time. A very unlikely occurrence in a two-engine plane. Generally, if they lose one engine, they can fly just fine. Sir?
I want to speculate, but there had been some reports of birds hitting the engine. Did you hear those, and what credence is being given to that?
I did not. I've heard lots of speculation, but credence is not something that is up to us to give or to withhold. The reason air travel is so safe is that the National Transportation Safety Board does a very thorough, careful, scientific investigation. Their results take time, days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. And based on that, we constantly improve the safety procedures for airplanes and for airspace and for airports. And we just should not be speculating, and we're not going to miss.
Can you tell us what happened to the infant upon impact, and what, if any,
we don't know, but apparently there was no. One of the passengers said to me, the pilot said over the intercom, or one of the crew said over the intercom, "Brace yourself," and I can only assume whoever was holding the baby did it, but the baby was certainly not injured, so there's no indication of that whatsoever. Pardon? The baby is in New Jersey, so as the police commissioner points out, so we haven't had time to talk. So.
All about, you touched on it though, about the injuries, how serious they are. Are they from impact injuries? Are they from hypothermia?
We have absolutely no knowledge. Basically, the people who went to the hospital were very few, and they were in stable condition, did not appear to the EMS that talked to me to be seriously injured. But for safety reasons, they sent them. Sir?
Can you talk a little bit about what the pilot told you as far as the chronology of...
He did not discuss it at all. He's waiting to talk to the NTSB. And that's what he should do. Miss?
To confirm, this flight was going from LaGuardia to Charlotte.
That's
and
correct.
Witness that I spoke to said that 3 minutes into the flight, only 3 minutes, the captain came on and said that we've had engine failure and to brace yourself.
The plane is just, 2 miles out of LaGuardia. It would have been a time frame just about that. As soon as they take off, they were heading south. He managed to, I'm told, tried to turn around and landed on the Hudson, but all I can tell you for sure is he landed in the Hudson, and it would appear that he did a masterful job and everybody got out safely. I thought it might be interesting. You might want to hear from Alan Warren, who is the harbor master for New York Waterways. Circle Line and New York Waterways had their ferries out there. They jumped up right away and probably saved an awful lot of lives. Alan?
Okay, I'd just like to, Warren, W-A-R-R-E-N, Alan, A-L-A-N. I'm the Director of Ferry Operations for New York Waterway. I'd like to recognize Arthur Imperator Jr. is here with the company. His family owns the company. This is not the first time that we've come and did something like this. I just want to commend my crew members back there. They're the guys who really did it. NYPD, New York Police Department, Circle Line, all the other maritime companies, U.S. Coast Guard, and I'm glad no one got seriously hurt and there's no fatalities.
You heard the plane, you saw the plane, what did you do?
As soon as my guys heard the plane, 4 boats were on site immediately. My office dispatched as many boats as we had at that time. At this point, I'm guessing 14 at the most on site, as others were bringing passengers to the terminals. Office personnel came down. We helped set triage up in Pier 79 here in our Port Imperial Ferry Terminal in Weehawken. Assistance from all public agencies. And what's the...
When you first heard it, what did you say?
I've been with the company 12 years now, and we don't think. We just react. And everyone kind of knows what they do, from people in the office answering the phones to the people on the ferries. Everyone steps up and
to pull out.
Well, we drill all the time on safety. We have an active training program, first aid, CPR, which members are actively going through right now. We have platforms and cradles that lower on a boat. Our crews are trained in them. They train once every couple weeks on this. We go through U.S. Coast Guard training drills. Like I said, these guys are the ones who really did it. They just react. I don't know. I have no comment on it.
People who actually help rescue.
Deckhands and captains will be made available later on.
later on. Obviously, people were very pleased to be saved. The ones that I talked to. I might also point out that the Red Cross was here, and the Red Cross had given everybody blankets, and they had hot coffee and chocolate and that sort of thing, and they're fine. Okay.
People that are flying into skies right now are flying in and out of LaGuardia. It's not going to happen again.
I believe it's the case that there hasn't been a fatality in the United States in air travel in over 2 years. It is far and away per mile and maybe even per trip the safest ways that you can travel. If you want to worry, they always say this, and it is true, make sure you wear your seatbelts to and from the airport, because once you get in an airplane, history shows in the United States it is a very safe way of traveling. Nobody can guarantee that accidents won't happen, but I, for one, would not have any problems having my daughters fly this evening in an airplane. Let me get somebody else. Yes, miss.
Can you give us the chronology from when the plane goes down through when each unit and the folks arrived? Is that possible?
It'll take a while. The New York Waterways and Circle Line were first on the scene.
Yeah, and honestly, we're still working out the details, trying to interview the crews ourselves.
That's what he told me. Pilot said he walked the plane twice, all the way back. Yes, miss.
Passengers were floating in the water.
There were a few that I talked to that went into the water. Most, I gather, either stepped directly from the plane onto a boat or onto the wings and then onto a boat. So most were not soaking wet.
Where's the
pilot is waiting to talk to the National Transportation Safety Board.
About how quickly the plane started to fill with water. Did you talk about that?
It did not fill with water so fast that he didn't have time to walk all the way back and forward. And then Commissioner Kelly had two divers who walked the plane afterwards. By that time, there was some water slowing it. But the plane is still afloat. At least it was the last time I heard. One more question.
Rule out what the cause, at least in terms of foul play, is. How can it be done quickly when we're not?
There is never anything done quickly when they investigate a plane incident, and that's something that should give you a great deal of pleasure. They don't jump to conclusions, but based on the little we know at the moment, and there's always an assessment like this made by the police commissioner and other emergency personnel, that does not appear to be anything other than an accident or a natural issue, but not terrorism. And the reason that's the one thing we do check in advance to make sure, because you don't want it to start a chain. But it appears that it had nothing to do with this. And the speculation about birds or anything else is something that the National Transportation Safety Board will answer. We'll give you the last question.
The black box recovered.
The plane's still there. It's still in the plane. There won't be any problem at all. The plane is still floating as far as it was anyways 20 minutes ago, and certainly would not be any damage to the black box. So we'll do that.
Does the pilot talk of any intention of trying to get back to the airport?
He did not talk about what he did other than to help us ascertain that everybody got off. And that's what he's supposed to do, wait and talk, not to us, but to the National Transportation Safety Board. I hate to make it a broken record, but that's the ways that you can be assured that they find out what really happened. And I just want to finish by saying that our police department and our fire department, you couldn't ask for any group to work better. They cooperate with the Port Authority and their police department, New York Waterways, Circle Line. It's really hard to find anything that if this happened again, you would want to change. We are very lucky to have all these people who are dedicated, who work together, and who train together. And after this, you'll have to wait. We'll release when we know for sure the exact passenger numbers and where they all are. But let me reiterate, it would appear that roughly 155 people, appears they all got out safely, no serious injuries. The pilot certainly did a masterful job of landing, and it would appear that our response, thanks to the governor and the state and the Port Authority and the city agencies, everybody worked together, and it should give us some comfort. It's terrible that it happened, but if it was going to happen, this outcome is as good as you could ever hope and pray for. And thank you.